took in a homeless alien child, but didn't know that the child was the heir to an empire. The storm that night was unlike anything I had ever seen before. The skies over the barren plains of New Terra twisted and boiled with violent shades of blue and violet. Rain fell in heavy sheets that turned the dirt roads into rivers. I was hurrying back to my small farm when I spotted the figure. At first, I thought it was an injured animal. It was curled tightly against a fallen tree, its thin arms wrapped around its knees. It shivered under the onslaught of the storm. Against better judgment, I ran over. My boots sank into mud as I approached. The figure lifted its head. Wide golden eyes stared back at me. The face was thin and sharp with high cheekbones and a faint shimmer to the skin that marked it clearly as non-human. It was a child. I knelt in the mud, ignoring the cold that seeped into my clothes. I reached out my hand carefully. Come on, I said softly. You will freeze out here. The child hesitated. Then with a slow movement, it placed its small hand in mine. Its fingers were so thin, so light it was like touching mist. I scooped the child into my arms. It weighed almost nothing. My coat was large enough that I wrapped it around the little body and shielded it as best I could while making my way back home. Inside my modest farmhouse, I stoked the fire higher. The child sat silently by the hearth, watching the flames dance with a quiet intensity. I brought a bowl of hot stew and offered it. The child sniffed it hesitantly, then began to eat with slow, careful bites. What's your name? I asked. The child stared at me for a long moment before answering in a whisper. Lyra. That was all. No last name, no explanation. Just Lyra. Over the next few days, I learned very little more. Lyra spoke little. She flinched away at sudden movements. She refused to sleep unless the fire was burning bright. She wore the same torn gray tunic she had arrived in, and when I offered other clothes, she accepted them with strange formality, as though accepting a priceless gift. I had no idea where she had come from. I had no idea how she had ended up alone in a storm on a forgotten farming colony at the edge of human settled space. All I knew was that she needed help, and I had the means to offer it. Winter came fast. The fields froze early that year. Supplies were tight. I worked the field by day and taught Lyra small things by night. How to tend the hearth, how to chop vegetables, how to mend torn cloth. She watched every lesson with rapt attention, her small hands deft and quick to learn. Sometimes at night, I would wake to find her standing at the window, staring up at the stars, her golden eyes reflecting the light like twin moons. Do you miss home? I asked one night. She nodded once. A tiny, almost imperceptible motion. Where is your home? She did not answer. She only pressed her forehead against a glass and whispered a word I could not understand. Spring thawed the fields. Life began to return to New Terra. Lyra grew stronger. Her cheeks filled out. She smiled more. A rare, fragile thing that broke like sunlight through clouds. The local town took notice of her, of course. Strange children were rare. Strange alien children were unheard of. I told people she was a war orphan. That was partly true. Rumors of conflict beyond the frontier were constant. No one asked too many questions. Life settled into a rhythm. Hard, simple, honest work. Then one afternoon, while we were in the market, it happened. A ship arrived. Not a trade freighter. Not a smuggler. A sleek, dark vessel unlike anything the colony had ever seen. It descended over the plains with a low hum that shook the ground. From its step, figures clad in armor, like living shadows. Their helmets obscured their faces. Their movements were precise and lethal. The whole market froze. The lead figure unrolled a scroll and spoke in a voice that cut the air like a blade. By order of the royal house of Vena, we seek the missing heir to the empire. A child stolen from our grasp in an act of treachery. Any who harbor the heir will be shown mercy if they step forward now. A murmur ran through the crowd. I felt Lyra grip my hand tightly. Her small fingers dug into my palm. The armored figures fanned out, scanning faces, searching. I tried to act casual. I started to pull Lyra gently toward the alleys behind the market, but she stopped. She looked up at me. There was a sorrow there, a weight I could not understand. I have to go, she said quietly. No, I whispered fiercely. You do not even know if they mean you. I know, she said simply. Before I could stop her, she stepped away from me. She walked into the center of the market, head held high, small shoulders straight. The lead figure saw her, stopped. Then to my horror, he dropped to one knee. His fist thumped against his chest in salute. Your Highness, he said reverently. We have searched the stars for you. The entire market gasped. I stared in shock. Lyra turned and met my eyes one last time. Thank you, she said, for everything. The soldiers closed around her like a shield. She disappeared into the dark ranks, and then they were gone. The ship lifted into the sky, a roaring shadow that vanished among the stars. I stood there alone. The market slowly returned to life around me. People whispered, pointed. I returned to my farm. Alone. The house was empty. Her presence gone but not forgotten. Weeks passed. I tried to forget, tried to move on. Then one evening as the sun dipped low, a new ship landed in my fields. From its stepped a tall figure clad in silver robes. An emissary. He bowed low before me. By command of her Imperial Majesty Lyra, first of her name sovereign of the Vena Empire, you are summoned. Summoned, I repeated dumbly. Yes, he said. Summoned to the capital world. Summoned to be honored. Summoned because the Empress herself wishes to see you again. I hesitated. I looked at the little farmhouse, the empty fields, and I realized I had nothing to keep me here. I nodded. The journey across the stars was dizzying. Worlds passed in blurs of light and color. I saw things I had never dreamed possible. Cities of crystal, oceans of fire, creatures so strange it defied description. Finally we reached Vena Prime, a world of towering spires, endless gardens, a sky that shimmered with 1,000 hues. I was led through gilded halls, through great courts filled with beings from every corner of the galaxy. At last I see me to a throne room larger than my entire village. At its center sat Lyra. No longer the thin, shivering child I had found. She wore robes of woven starlight, a crown of living metal upon her brow. Her golden eyes were steady and clear. She rose as I entered. Her court fell silent. She walked to me, stopping only a foot away. You saved me, she said simply. You gave me kindness when I had nothing. You gave me warmth when I had only cold. You gave me hope. I bowed awkwardly, unsure of the protocol. She smiled that same rare, fragile smile I remembered. I have decreed, she said, that you shall have a place here. You will want for nothing. You shall be honored as family. Family, I repeated stunned. Yes, she said. Her small hand reached for mine, just as it had on that stormy night so long ago, and I realized that no matter how far she had risen, no matter how many stars bowed before her, she was still the same child who had clung to life in my arms, and I was still the one who had reached out and held her. Together we turned to face the court. Together we faced the future, not as ruler and subject, but as family, forever.